Good evening. Is it on? Okay. Good evening. How's everybody doing? I'm going to turn it over to Cal Sal, our court administrator, to get started, and then I will share some remarks after he's finished.
Am I on? Okay. First of all, we want to thank Council Lady Porterfield and the committee for agreeing to let us appear here tonight. We are not one of the metro departments that was initially scheduled for a regular hearing. We made the request when we saw that the mayor's budget proposal was released, and we were surprised about one budget modification request not being funded. And just quickly, I'll give you the history, the procedural history of that, and I'll turn it over to Judge Bell. In December of 2022, when the Metro Action Commission was losing funding to help us with housing navigators in our specialty court that was working with tenants that were facing eviction, Judge Bell approached the COVID-19 Oversight Committee and asked if we could get some COVID-19 American Rescue Plan funding to continue on with 2 housing navigator positions. That was approved. The funding only covered calendar year 23, which of course is on a different timetable than the fiscal years that we all operate under. So therefore, as we rolled into the FY24 budget cycle, we engaged with the Department of Finance to request funding to maintain these 2 housing navigator positions going forward. We initially requested full funding for these positions, but we were advised that the best way to go would be get 50% of the funding in the FY24 budget to cover the last half of FY24 with what we assumed was a strong assurance that come the FY25 budget cycle, we would ask for the remaining 50% funding to maintain these 2 housing navigator positions. And again, that was just an assurance that that's the way to go. And so we were kind of led to believe that that would be something that would be forthcoming, and it was not in the mayor's budget. And as a result, we are in danger of losing these 2 housing navigator positions who work very closely with the eviction right to counsel program that the mayor and the council have fully supported in the past. And Judge Bell will be able to give you more oversight of the importance of these positions.
Thank you, Cal, and I think he shared exactly what we're here for. The exciting thing about Nashville is that we were one of the first in the country to start this housing court, diversionary court. And we were featured at the White House Eviction Prevention Summit back in 2021. And if you look on your left-hand side of your folder, you'll see that press release where I was one of the presenters. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize we were the only city, county, jurisdiction that was actually doing this work with the COVID-19 moratorium relief funds. And we did have 2 court navigators that I took from my own staff and just purposed them downstairs. So I lost them for some of the other positions that they were working on. And then we realized that this needed to be something permanent, not just because of COVID. We were working on a housing court for Nashville with MDHA, and that went well. We were working on settlement agreements so that people that are faced with potential eviction would not necessarily then become homeless, but maybe have another place for respite or another place to live for a short period of time. The Financial Assistance Network program was up and running with United Way. The CARES grant funding was coming from ERP funds. And here we are now. The court navigators were always in place with Nashville. And then we moved to get Legal Aid Society, because I kept talking with Legal Aid Society and Darkenia Waller, the executive director, that the housing court navigators, they can refer the individual to resources and help them get connected to opportunities or funding or maybe another place to live if they're not able to stay in their residence, but they can't legally advocate for them. That's not lawful. So we need to have both. So the Legal Aid Society, this has been a wonderful program. Right to Counsel, I think, is wonderful. It needs to continue to grow. But they're only in the courthouse 2 days a week. The eviction court runs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And the lawyers don't have time to be case managers or advocates with social work and trying to connect them to housing. They need to legally advocate for these individuals with the landlord or the tenant with the landlord trying to come up with a settlement agreement, or when is their eviction going to be, or when are they going to be able to come up with some kind of arrangements to either vacate the premises and or have a little bit longer to stay. And that's a legal agreement. But for case management and social work and navigating the individual getting to the Legal Aid Society or getting to those lawyers, as well as the financial assistance network and the nonprofits and the churches and other collaborative community organizations, we need these program navigators to remain in place. So we started out with program navigators, then we added on right to counsel. To remove the foundation of what we have in the courthouse, I think would be taking a huge step backwards. We're a model court for a number of jurisdictions across the United States of America. And when they come even to visit the city of Nashville, I know they're coming because Nashville is wonderful, but they're also coming to learn about our community court. We've had courts from Kentucky come to see our model. We've had several courts come virtually with different sessions. And then this last fall, we had several judges come from New Orleans that were working to create the same model that we have here in Nashville. So we're being nationally recognized for this work, but to remove the key component of this work, I think would be a disservice to our tenants, it would be a disservice to our citizens. I think it would really, really put us in a situation where we would be putting ourselves back where we started. Legal Aid Society has always been able to help tenants and others, individuals dealing with civil issues. However, they've not always been housed in the courthouse. And when they're not there, there's a nice table, there's nice pamphlets, there's a lot of information to give to that person. But these people need a human touch. A lot of the time, they're really going through it, learning that they have to be removed or they're being asked to be removed from their property tomorrow or within the next 10 days. I don't know if many of you know, but the legislature has now enacted a law that will come effective in July, where we used to have 15 days for a continuance for a tenant to try to figure out and navigate what they're going to do if they're going to be evicted. Now it's 7 days. And if you only have lawyers there 2 times a week, but we have the housing navigators and the other team there every day working within our system and plugging them in to this system called Charity Tracker that then goes to all the nonprofits, all the churches, all the resources in the city, and then just private individuals that want to give their philanthropic efforts to help people that just need a month here and there. Sometimes they had a car accident or they had a medical condition and they got set back just 1 month or 2 months. It's very important to not dismantle the foundation of what we built. And I am particularly the staff that has worked with us for the last 5 years building this program, to be removed from building it would just be kind of, I just don't think we need to continue the good work that we're doing. Okay.
Thank you, Judge Bell. Is that the end of your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Councilmember Benedict, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Judge Bell, for being here. It's great to see you again. Twice in a week is good. I appreciate you coming out for Lesbian Day of Visibility the other night.
Yes, thank you for your work on the resolution.
For sure. On these housing program navigator positions, in your questionnaire, it looks like the funding is $101,800. Does that make that, and that's just for those positions, it says funding in that amount was appropriated to maintain 2 positions. Let me back up. 118,200 is what's needed to maintain those. Does that then take them off of the calendar year and move them to the fiscal year cycle?
It does.
At 118,000? Okay. And then, all right, so I want to pivot over. Congratulations on that recognition for that program, and that sounds very important. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
I want to move over to and talk about environmental court.
Okay.
That's one that is really important, and some of the most frequent calls that I get are about codes violations. And then people don't know what the process is, and sometimes they're getting picked on by developers in the neighborhood who want to buy their property. And so people call codes, you know, they continue to get codes violations, and sometimes they're things that they can't afford or they're just nitpicky. And so they end up going to environmental court, which currently is handled by a referee rather than a judge. And I'm curious, I think, and I can't find it, but I think within the last term sometime, we funded a position that we gave funding to General Sessions to cover the cost of a judge and a courtroom, but I don't believe that that's been, it's not been set up because this referee is still in place. Do you know, can you share anything about that? I know it's not on anything you presented today, but I'd like to learn more about that and understand if that's going to be set up, and if it's not, then I'm going to try to find it in the budget and see maybe we could cover your housing navigators there and even pull a little bit out for other things if needed, because I think it's crucial for our citizens to be able to be heard by a judge, not just a referee, so that they can have a valid day in court about these. These are some of the most vulnerable folks in the community.
So I'm going to turn that over to Cal, but in my understanding, and I'm about the presiding judge right now, that is Judge Anna Escobar, and Judge Melissa Blackburn is serving with her right now. She's out for surgery. My understanding is that the referee that does go over those cases, and if an individual does not like the ruling, we do have Judge Walker, who is the presiding judge over environmental court. But I'm going to turn it over to Cal so he can give you more information regarding that.
Don't hold me to what year this happened, but many, many years ago, there was an initial public chapter that was passed that basically said that any county that has a metropolitan form of government, Division 4 of the General Sessions Court is designated as environmental court. So, of course, that was aimed directly at us. I believe it was probably in the year 2002, they came along and passed another public chapter saying that that created the position of the environmental court referee that works underneath the oversight of the Division 4 judge, which is Judge Allegra Walker currently. And Judge Bell is correct. There are so many codes cases, and the codes docket is usually held on Tuesday mornings, and it's 3 different dockets spread out. And Referee Renard Hirsch is our current referee. If either Metro Legal doesn't like the ruling of the referee or the person who's been cited for a code violation, within 5 days, they can request a rehearing in front of Judge Walker before they have to appeal over to this side of the street to get it into the circuit court. So it seems to work really well. I had some Vanderbilt students on site this week in the summer class watching how the court system works, and Judge Walker was having an afternoon docket hearing cases that had been appealed or asked for a rehearing from the referee. So there is a process in place for persons to get a hearing in front of the actual elected General Sessions Court judge.
Thank you for that. I guess, so the constituent would need to come out twice then. Once for the referee hearing, and then if they wanted to appeal that, they'd have to take off of work or come out another day for the court date?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's I've got concerns about that. This is something, again, I hear about from some of my most vulnerable constituents who are going through, who are trying to stay in their existing homes and not be displaced by developers that want to come in and buy up their home and build something new and displace them. So I think that, and I guess then could you, and this prior to the establishment of the referee, were these cases just spread out amongst Division 4 judges?
Well, there's only one Division 4 judge at a time.
Okay.
So I wasn't around personally back then, but I'm assuming.
Among all the General Session Court judges, rather, I should have said. My apologies.
Right, and I think that probably what prompted the creation of the referee was that only the Division 4 judge had the authority to preside over environmental court, and the volume was so high that I think the legislature came in and created the referee position as sort of the initial portal to get into the court system to have a hearing, with a right to a rehearing in front of the elected judge if you request that.
One thing I'd like to share, if it's okay.
Oh, sorry.
And this is something we've been talking about for a long time. We have 11 judges. We have 10 courtrooms. If we could have 11 courtrooms for 11 judges, we probably could run environmental court every day. The problem is I literally, like I came today with my backpack, every day I come with my backpack to the next courtroom and get ready like you're going into a new classroom every day. You don't get to really run the dockets the way you want to. So we're trying to figure out space in the courthouse, room in the courthouse, which courtroom can we do environmental court, even though it's set on Tuesday in the morning, they may not can have it in the morning because another judge is in there handling another docket. So we're asking for our 11th courtroom. The funding is in place, to my understanding, for that to happen. As soon as that can happen, I think a lot of things that our constituents would like to see can happen. And I think we could have more dockets on the everyday basis with that referee and or even, I'm not going to speak for my colleagues, but I do know we've talked about this for a while. We're one of the best courts in the country as far as specialty courts. If we could have an environmental court just do environmental court, I don't think anybody's in opposition for that. We've got DV court, and they just do DV. We have mental health court, but Judge Blackburn is doing her regular docket and mental health court and veterans court. Some of us, Judge Gail Robinson does his regular docket and then he does recovery court. I myself have 3 other courts that we're running. We're doing the best we can, but it's really, really, really hard trying to push another judge out of the courtroom so then we can run a docket. So that is really the key to one of the problems, to be frankly honest with you.
And I appreciate that, and there's no doubt you guys are doing great work. I think the crux of the question that I've got now is that if the funding has already been provided in the budget, but there's not a judge in place, or the funding has been, not the fudging, the funding has been provided for that courtroom, and it doesn't exist today, then where are those funds going today?
Well, and we just confirmed this most recently with General Services. There is a $5 million allocation in the capital expenditure budget. Now, I'm not an expert on it, but what I'm being told is how you get it from the capital expenditure budget to the capital spending plan. That's the one hurdle in the road that exists right now.
But is there operating budget for the judge position? Because that's the thing I think we also authorized in the last term.
We've got 11 judges, but only 10 courtrooms. So that's what Judge Bell was mentioning, is that, yes, we already have a judge available to occupy an additional courtroom, but because we are short one courtroom, our judges basically rotate weekly to different dockets. And like Judge Bell was saying, the courtroom where environmental court is held, that's also the same courtroom that all these other specialty courts have to, on Tuesdays, it's environmental court. On Mondays, it's mental health court. Wednesdays, it's recovery court. Judge Escobar runs our Cherish Hearts Court, working with victims of human trafficking. So everybody is trying to crowd around the trough to get into that one courtroom that would be available if we wanted to expand it, but we just don't have the space that we need.
I appreciate that. Chair, thank you for allowing me to go down that line of questions. Thank you.
You are welcome, Councilmember Benedict. I have one follow-up question, Mr. Sowell. Do you know what % of individuals are actually kind of going through that appeal process through environmental court, going through that appeal process to go to Judge Walker?
I do not. I would be totally guessing. I can find that out for you.
Okay, if you could find that out and let us know, to be helpful. Thank you. I have Councilmember Bradford and then Councilmember Evans. Does anyone else want to be recognized? All right, Councilmember Bradford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thank y'all for coming. And I did not realize that our space issues were as they were, that y'all were basically playing musical chairs. So I appreciate that revelation, and it led to my question. In the interim, while we're waiting for funding to be allocated or approved for new space, have you looked at other options, whether it's utilizing space at Howard, or when I'm thinking about courtroom space, I'm looking around, sitting in the very room we're sitting in right now that only gets used 2 to 4 times a month, that, have you looked into possibly utilizing this space for an 11th courtroom?
I don't think we have, but I think this would be a good time for us to allow counsel to come to one of our judges' meetings, and we can particularly start talking about other places that we could use that are not being used. I think that is a great approach. We do have a room that we've identified in the courthouse, which would be courtroom 3D, if we can go on and get that built out. We have been asking for this since, I think, 2016. And we did have the funding. We did the statue of Justice Birch first, and then we added the steps in the Justice Birch building, and then the courtroom was supposed to be third. But with the number of changes in administration and just trying to get back to this opportunity, we're ready to go. But I think it would be great for us to explore using other spaces that aren't far from the Birch building. I think that would be wonderful. But I can't speak on behalf of my colleagues. So when we get back to the judges meeting, then we can see what they think about that.
And I might add too, there are a lot of stakeholders and moving parts because the DA has people coming to the Birch building every day. The public defender's office has people coming every day. Private counsel and lots of times these attorneys are going back and forth on the elevator between the 6th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd floor. And so when you start talking about having dockets at an off-site location, then we need to be bringing in General Funk, Martisa Johnson, and other stakeholders because it's easier said than done.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for clearing that up. Councilmember Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you. I have been influenced, so thank you for being here to share some of the information today. I just sent an updated wish list in to Maria.
Thank you.
Yes, so as our term just started, again in October and at the beginning of the term, a local attorney offered to lead a little field trip to come to eviction court, so I got to go for the first time. And I lucked out. That was a day that the right to counsel tables were staffed. And so got to learn more about how they're interacting, with people that are navigating that process. And so I guess, can you help me understand kind of related to the eviction court process like that, as far as dockets that you're running and, the tables only being staffed twice a week, like case ratio to, are the days that right to counsel folks are there, are they like the heaviest docket days? And so are they trying to capture the most people? Is it based on their availability? Is there any opportunity? I'm sure there's always opportunity with more money to kind of align, eviction docket days with additional right to counsel and those kinds of things. I'm just thinking of the disparity, kind of to your point where you were talking about the folks that really need to have that additional help, like through the housing navigation process, that there are some people that are getting that additional support by being able to talk to an attorney who can help advocate compared to coming into the court and just being presented with factual information, but maybe not know necessarily how to interpret it or use it when they go out into the hallway and they're, talking through their options.
Okay. Well, thank you first for adding us to your wish list. I appreciate that. To answer your first question, they are staffing the most heaviest days. So Tuesday and Thursday are the most heaviest days. However, the partnership, because the housing navigators have always been a part when this first was developed, that's a partnership. So they know on Monday that they're not there. They're going to get any tenant that needs representation from Legal Aid Society connected by the housing court navigator. On Tuesday, they will be there. It's the heavier staff days. But while they're waiting for the number of people, the number of people that are waiting to see an attorney, they're able to talk with the housing navigators and get them into the portal, get them into the system, to the nonprofits and to the churches and other individuals that can help with funding. Because Legal Aid Society doesn't have funding to help pay the landlord, but they can give them legal representation. If it's a habitability issue, if the landlord is not quite, hasn't filed the eviction properly, there may be a little bit more time, and that's a legal space that they're willing to represent those individuals, but they also can't represent individuals that aren't indigent. So they have to go through an application process with those individuals. So the housing court navigators are able to answer a lot of questions, get them into the portal, and then the Legal Aid Society will be able to represent each person that they can that actually meets the requirements. Because if they're not indigent and they don't meet the requirements and they can't represent them. So there's a lot of fielding that they have to do as well. And I do believe they need more attorneys, and it's not necessarily, they do need more attorneys, but they need more funding because, as you know, most lawyers that work in indigent work aren't being paid market rate as an attorney. That's unfortunate too. It's just where we are. But yes, they are manning those dockets on the heaviest dockets throughout the week, but having the housing court navigators there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, as well as connected to the financial assistance network that's here in Nashville, again, with all the nonprofits, all the churches that are in that portal and connecting that tenant into that system, along with Metro Action Commission to let them know this is where you can go for these particular funds to help you with this particular landlord. That's the process right now. And if you remove the housing court navigators, then I can't imagine how, I have a lot of work. I just can't imagine Nashville removing that opportunity for those people that are going pushed to the margins. And the court system was never created for you to understand it, to be honest. And so you're thrusted into it, whether it's your fault or not, you're just thrusted into it. And you have to have somebody give you some information, not just a pamphlet. And not just one person can help over 100 people that come through the court system in just a week. And if you look at page 2 of the memo that I did prepare for you today, the evictions in last year were 13,214 that were filed. And year to date right now, the end of April, is 4,128 individuals that have had a case filed. The process that we used to have is that they had a Metro Action application that we knew for sure that they were going to get ERAP funds or emergency rental assistance funds, that they would automatically be transferred to the housing court. That was helpful because of the COVID moratorium. That was also helpful because we had funds and it was a mandate. It worked wonderfully. However, landlords were frustrated, I understand, because of the delay of the funding. However, tenants were able to keep a roof over their head and landlords were able to receive funding. Metro Action Commission dished out over $80 million to help landlords receive the funds that they were due and also keep tenants with a roof over their head. We're not asking landlords to hold the bag anymore, but what we are trying to do is just help people navigate through one of the worst situations that can happen to anybody. You don't know if you're going to be evicted, if you're going to have housing, or if you're going to be transitioned, or if you're going to be homeless. It all works together. And Nashville has not only a homelessness crisis, it's availability crisis, it's affordability crisis. We have a lot going on. And these two individuals that are helping navigate individuals going through this for the whole courthouse, even some of the criminal court judges upstairs know that we have housing court navigators downstairs, and they'll send somebody that may need assistance connecting to resources in the courthouse. That's where I would say that's where the least of these are right now, dealing with these situations. So thank you for asking that question. I hope I answered it.
You did, and thank you for that additional context. It was very helpful. And have you all looked at, with the state law changing from the 15 to the 7, what that impact potentially looks like? Like, you haven't been able to do that yet to really
I would
see
just tell you,
how that's really going to negatively impact.
I am just going to tell you, I'm a real estate attorney. During the crisis back in 2008, I was stopping foreclosures left and right, and it's going to get bad. It's going to be something you've never seen before. It's going to be horrible. I'm just being honest. People don't have time to get out. None of us in this room, do you have time to get out in 10 days? Unpack your family, your career, your systems, you're navigating where you're going to live, pay your first month's rent, pay a deposit. So now, there used to be 15 days, at least gave you a couple of weeks to try to figure things out. Now you only have 7 days, that's 1 week before your court date, which there's anxiety, there's fear, there's depression, all these things are setting in. And you still have to deal with the woes of the situation. You still have to face it. But now we're thrusting you to deal with it in 7 days when the law has been in place for more than 30 years, 15 days. It's going to be bad.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience on that too.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. You've made your case very convincingly. As you know, anytime we add money, we have to take it from somewhere. And I'm convinced this will cost us money somewhere if we don't do this. And I guess the positive way to look at it is we'll be saving money if we do it. Do you have any kind of data, like how many of these people that you've been able to help for the past couple of years, 90% of them end up being able to stay in their home, or 80 or 40 or 60 or whatever, and thereby avoid, ending up in our homeless services or in emergency rooms or the other places that people often end up landing just because they've lost so many options that everything else falls apart as well. Do you
We
have
haven't
any kind of
started
data we can?
fully calculating that data. I know that there was a group a couple of years ago during COVID that was tracking that type of data. I can probably try to get you some information, but I know our team hasn't been calculating that particular data. No.
Yeah, if you can think of who that group was, that might just be helpful, just
Okay.
to figure out who we're going to redirect this from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen and Judge Bell. Thank you for all of your work. This is such important work. Thank you for what you do, and it is very evident that you have a heart for the people that you're helping. So thank you for that. With that, we will end this, and we will get started on arts in just one moment. If you all want to go ahead.
Speak today.